Greetings, and join me in an adventure into the middle of your mind. I am Mr. Brzezinski, and I'm going to talk you through some mind mapping here, and we're going to use Google Draw to create a mind map, sometimes called a visual organizer. So to start off, if I've clicked this button to see this video that you're watching right now, you want to go up here to the top of the window right here and click on the open. That will give me a separate tab opening up right here. I'm going to click and drag that tab out and move my video to the right hand side and resize this window, and then go ahead and hit back on this window. You should know how to do this by now, but let's go right into the assignment right here. I'm going to click open or click on the mind mapping hyperlink to bring me into the assignment itself. Now I'm going to create. So I click on create, and I'm going to create a drawing. I click on drawing, and there you go. It's going to have your name on it and tell me that this is the mind mapping assignment. Go ahead and do that now. Go ahead and open up your file, and you'll have a blank page. And we're going to start off. Let me show you an example of what we're going to be doing today. Here's the example of the mind map. And as you see here, it's going to be on sports. So as you can see, I have a title in the middle, and then I have connecting lines that will show up. I have an icon of the sport or a piece of clip art. I have the name of the sport, and then participants in that sport. Now you could choose whatever sports you want. You could have football, basketball, baseball, tennis, cycling, any of these types of sports that you have interest in. You have to determine who goes into your mind map though, okay? So basically this is just a graphic organizer to kind of organize our thoughts. So let's get into it and let's start off. The first thing I want to do is create a larger screen. So make sure that I have a nice size. Of course, I do need to see the video over on the right hand side, but I do want to resize this by grabbing the bottom right hand side of my window and opening it up so that I have a nice wide view of what I'm going to be creating. Part of the mind mapping process is that you are able to get your ideas out on the piece of paper, on this document, quickly, as quick as possible before you forget. So what we want to do is start off with the most general idea, and then we'll make it fancy later, okay? So the most general idea would be creating any shape. We could just pick a shape and start off with creating a title. And I put this in the middle of my document right here. I open up a box, I double click in it, and I type the word sport. So go ahead and do that. Next step is going ahead and I'm going to put in 3 sports that I have interest in. Okay, so all I'm going to do is create 3 more of these blocks, and I could do that by Command C to copy, or I could go up to edit and I can see what my shortcuts are right here, and this will speed things up later on, is Command C, so that command button on the keyboard, and the letter C to copy, and Command V for victory to paste. Okay, so I could just paste, paste, and paste another one, and I can organize these. And now instead of sport, I'm going to type in the name of the sports that I want to do my project on. So go ahead and you could choose out baseball, curling, basketball, Olympic sports, amateur sports, track and field, doesn't matter. Go ahead and name 3 sports. As long as you know 3 people in those sports, have at it. So now you should have 4 blocks, 1 with the title and the 3 sports that you chose. I went ahead and put in mixed martial arts for my 3rd sport, and you should be at this stage now. If not, pause, finish, and then come back to the video. So now comes the fun part. I'm going to put in 3 athletes of each sport that I like. Okay, so I'm going to put in 3 wrestlers, 3 players, 3 martial artists. And if you can't think of one, or if you only have 2 of the 3, don't fret, my pet. Come right up here, start a new Google window, and go ahead and search for your players of your sport. Field hockey all-stars. You know, I could just put in field hockey all-stars, professionals, blah, 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 whatever it is. And I can maybe do a Google search for the best of the best. Now, sometimes you know who you want to put in. You know the player's name, but you don't know how to spell it, okay? So a lot of times Google will do the spelling for you. I know the person's name is Jordan. That's an easy one to spell, but the last name is Burrows, and I'm not sure. It's that 1R, 2R, how to do the GH. I'm not sure. So I go B-O-R-R, Burrows. There it is. So I found Burrows, and it is, in fact, in the sport that I wanted. So then I know this is how to spell the person's name. So I can click on that and then find a person's name down here, and I could spell it out or whatever I need to do. Sometimes it's just enough just to remind me on how to spell it right here. So don't be afraid to do a Google search to find out the spelling of your person's name as well. Another question you might have is, can I use my friends' names? Do they have to be professional? No, of course they don't have to be professional. They could still be in high school. They could be your middle school friends. It doesn't matter. You could put in any names for, and in fact, I used all of my former field hockey stars' names right here for my field hockey players. So these are all Nichman people. So you can choose any person in those sports. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a professional athlete. You may have noticed that some people's last names are not going to be part of the dictionary. They're not going to be seen as a name because they're spelled a little bit differently, and that's okay. So if you do come across this where you're looking at it right here and you see that it is underlined as a misspelled word, just ignore that. So maybe for most of you, you already have your players in mind, as I do for my sport. So I'm going to go over here and start off with wrestling. And once again, I don't want to complicate things by changing up things, changing colors, styles, or anything like that so far. I just want to keep it simple, just get my ideas out on the piece of paper, and later on I will edit to make it look pretty. So I have the word wrestling right here. I can do the Command D to duplicate, or I can do Command C and Command V to copy and paste. So I hit Command D to duplicate, and the final one right here, I put them all in order, and then I could just double click and I could type in the names of my wrestlers that I want to make mention of right here. So you can go ahead and do one for each player, or do one for each sport here, and keep adding in the new boxes. Command D for this sport right here, and so on and so forth. And then just go ahead and change up, double click in that area, and change the word to the players' names right underneath. Do that now, pause the video, come back to it when you're done. So at this stage of the video, you should have your title, your 3 sports, and your 3 players for each sport. So now the fun part comes, or the creative part comes. First thing I want to do is center all my words, okay? I want to center all my words. So what I'm going to do is open up a selection box. We call this a selection box. So I do have this button right here, select. I have this button, select it right here. And I'm going to click, or the arrow right there. I'm going to click and I'm going to drag open across all the boxes, just like that. Now that all my boxes are selected by using the selection box, which was clicking on this arrow again, now I'm going to center all my words. So I have some formatting toolbar over here, and I can say align, and if you don't see this, you may need to open up your window on the right-hand side a little bit wider like this till you see those extra things at the top, or the extra buttons here, and I'm going to center all my words. And as you can see by clicking center, it put all my words right into the middle of the box. So now that I've changed up the alignment of all my squares, I only want to select the top square again. So I'm going to have to click somewhere outside the text box, outside the selection box, and then back on so that I only have one block. We'll be going through this a few different times where we'll be selecting a whole row of blocks, or just the title, or all of the blocks all together. So you really should know how to use the selection box. And anytime you're in any of these areas over here and you need to get back to create a selection box, you can press the escape key in the upper left-hand side of the keyboard or simply click on the arrow. So now that I selected my title right here, I'm going to pick out a font. Up here at the top are some fonts that I've used before. I can click on those fonts and I can even change the font size. So let's go ahead and change the font style and size. Let's get it a 24 to 36 wherever you want to be, but make it large because it is our title, so make it large. 24 to 36 point font, whatever you feel is best for your area. If the word gets too big to fit in your box, you may need to downsize it. Depending on the font you use, it might run over. So you could just adjust your font accordingly, or you could just type in. If you want to maximize that space, you could type in an odd number right there. Now I'm going to change the background color, and I'm going to look for my paint bucket. I'm going to pour some paint in, and you can see the color right here matches up with the color right here. So I'm going to change up the color of that to be any color I want. And you know, Mr. B, I love my pastels, so I'm going to change it up and make it a pastel reddish looking color right there. So go ahead and you could choose any color you want for that top box. Next step, I'm going to attack my individual sports. So what I'm going to do here is create a selection box, another selection box over top of all of my blocks. As you see there, I even have that block below. Okay, so I got all the blocks here selected all at once. And now I'm going to choose a different font separate from the title. So each one of these sports will have its own font style. So my individual sport of wrestling will have a different font. And like I said before, sometimes this will be a little bit narrow, or the font might be smaller when you change the font, or larger, and you could always adjust the size accordingly. Once I have the font style change and I resize so that it fits in my box very nicely, I'm going to go ahead and change the color. Now each sport will have its own color, so you can go through and select a different color for each one of your sports. So go ahead and go through, selecting the next sport in line, which would be field hockey. Change that font. I've already changed it for mine. And then go ahead and change up the color for each individual sport. So at this point, I have my title here. I have my 3 different sports. I have 3 different people for each sport. I changed the color of each sport to be color-coded. And I also have the font that is going to be the same throughout each sport. Now I just want to make sure that the title, or my sport itself, is bold, a little bit bolder. So I can increase the size maybe a little bit and increase the boldness, the bold right here. So I could click on bold, it makes it a little bit thicker, and maybe I just increase it 1 notch up. So I take this, bring it up a little bit, maybe bolden up the letters of my sport. So I click on the box, not necessarily in there, but I actually just click on the box so that all the handles are around the box, but no cursor inside the box, and it will do what I need it to do to the letters inside that box. So let's make it a little bit jazzier, because although these boxes are very structured, it looks very clean, I'm going to try to make it a little special, all right? So what I want to do is choose a different type of shape for my box. All right, so there's lots of shapes up here, but I don't want to be using this shape finder right here. What I want to do is have this box changed shape. So what I do is I click on this, I go ahead and I hold down the control button as I click on the box, and I'm going to go down to change shape. As you see right here, change shape. Now I have a change selection that I can do, and it will actually change just that shape. So this is how to do it. Control click or right click if you've told your mouse to use the right click. So I'm going to choose a fancy shape here. And it can be any of these shapes. So I'm going to select maybe like a POW, like one of these right here. Let's do that. So I click on that, and look what happens here. It doesn't fit any anymore, so I got to increase the size of my POW, and boom, bam, POW. I feel like I'm in a Batman episode. So right there you have at the top of the list. Now fits in, it's nice, eye-catching. I'm going to do that with all of my sports here. Now, here's the thing. I do want to make my sport maybe different, since this is the sport name and not the person's name. So what I'm going to do here is select wrestling, and I'm going to use my control click again, and I'm going to look for changing the shape, and I'm going to change the shape. Now some of these are going to sort of fit together, like creating some of these things down here. Like these would be, if I leave my mouse over, it says flowchart document. Okay, so if I leave my mouse over top of a thing, it'll actually tell me flowchart document and flowchart internal storage, flowchart data. So I have flowchart alternative process. So I'm going to use this for the wrestling, and then for all 3 people in my sport, you could choose this. I'm going to change the shape, but I'm going to go over here to my flowchart design again and select a different shape. So there you have it. Now I have a flowchart top with funky looking shapes down here. And I could do the same thing for all of my sports. As I go through, I'm going to change the sport to be one shape, and then all 3 players to be another. Go ahead and do that. Pause the video, come back to it when you're done. And here's what I'm looking at. I got my sport names up here. I have the sport, and then I have the sport names, and it's bold, but it's the same font as all my participants in that sport, and I have a different box around it. However, it sort of has something to do with the boxes underneath of it. Okay, so you can see it kind of fits like a theme, so that each sport has its own theme. All right, so now what I want to do is connect in order to show that these are all part of the same thing. And this is called a curved connector. So I'm going to go up here to where it normally says line right here, and I'm going to choose the curved connector right here. So I click on curved connector. You can do elbow connector. These connectors will bring you from one text box to another text box and show you a natural progression of things. So if I go curved connector and I mouse over top of one text box, you can see I get little handles. I get 4 handles on each one. So I'm going to connect one handle to the other handle, and you can see it automatically curves it. Okay, so now I can say, okay, I want that to curve, and I want it to be down to here and down to here, and you can see I could do them all at once. And if I happen to click outside of it and I make a mistake, I can delete that. Okay, so I go up, or I could hit the escape key on the upper left-hand side of my keyboard, or I can click on the selection, and then I can select that item and then hit delete and get rid of it. Go back to the curved connector when I'm ready and continue connecting. So now I have all these boxes. I have the sport connected to wrestling, connected to my 3 participants, and watch what happens when I move my box. Okay, I'm going to hit escape or do my selection box, and I can say, okay, I want to move these 3 boxes, and I can move them down, and you see what happens here. It stretches out one of the lines. So those connectors will stay connected no matter where I move my items to. The lines will stay connected to the spots that they're supposed to be connected to on the text box. So I have my connectors here, and I'm going to keep them in line just like that. So go ahead and go through and connect all of your sports now. Some of them might be straight down anyway. Some you might want to do curved. Some you could do elbow connectors. Doesn't matter. Go ahead and connect. So I have all these connectors. However, they look a little bit wimpy. I want to jazz them up a little bit. That's right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select, and I have to hit the escape button or get out by hitting the select arrow or the escape button. And I'm going to click on one. hold down the shift button, and like I did with the cell project, I can go over and I can start clicking other lines. Okay, so you see I have a selection box over here that I select it, but just the lines, not the boxes. So I'm just selecting all the lines. And then I can come up here and I can start editing my lines. So I could change the color of my lines. I could change, and in fact, I could change to the color, maybe a darker color of the one I chose earlier, right? And then I can thicken them up as well, and I do want to do that. I do want to make them thicker. So you could choose anywhere from 3 to 4 maybe on the line thickness. And if you wanted to go crazy, you could also do a dashed line. You could also do a start and finish line. So if you see how this works here, this all goes back, but maybe I should say, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want the finish line to be like that. So now you can see here that the arrows come down, down, down. So you could have arrows pointing in a certain direction as well. So again, I hold down the shift button and I click on my lines, and just my lines, not my boxes here, so that I can get this line color. And if I click on a box, I can continue holding down shift and unclick that box. Okay, so if I accidentally click on one of the boxes, I hold down the shift and I click on that box again, and it deselects that box from the group that I am working with. So again, I could do a line color, and this is green, so I'll do a dark green down here, and I'll do my line thickness again and stay consistent with my lines throughout. So go ahead and do that now. So now I'm pretty much done, and as you can see, it looks clean, concise. It does not look like a crayon box. I don't have different colors for all these different things going in every which way. I stay consistent so that I have a heading, my title, which is sports or sport, and then I have my individual sports. I have my connecting lines, and each of my sports has the same font and same color. So just stay consistent a little bit, but then within that, you could change up your shapes that you gave to your sports. Just make sure that your words are fitting in and whatnot. And you could even position things a little bit different to see how these make the things a little bit more interesting with how the lines work. Spread things out a little bit more if you wanted to, whatever fits on your page. And see, I'm making like a little snowman effect here, right? So you could do subtle differences, but as long as it looks clean, concise, and you are finished. You are ready to turn it in. So go ahead, you know what to do. You head back to the mind map. You have your file right there, and you could turn it in. Are you sure? Yeah, I'm sure. Turn it in, man. Of course, you're going to get 100% on this project because you paid attention to all the instructions that you made to this point. You are a real champion. And in light of that, I will now sing to you the quintessential championship song. We are the champions, my friend, and we'll keep on computing till the end. Boom, boom, boom. You're welcome.